The Obama administration has taken pains to say that they are not trying to contain China per se. Well, then, if they aren't trying to contain China, what are they trying to do? I mean, this isn't, a delicate balancing act. They, on the one hand, need to obviously reinforce the relationship with China, a major trading partner. At the same time, they need to protect and reassure their allies, like the Philippines, Japan, that they will be protected should China continue to encroach upon their territory.
Yeah. Well, the United States during the Cold War, when we were actually containing somebody, in that case containing the Soviet Union, never traded even 1% of all trade with the Soviets. And today, trade with China is rapidly approaching 15% of all our trade. Our trade with Malaysia, our trade with the Philippines, is surpassed in terms of our trade with China, which is obvious. But even one U.S. company, Walmart is China's 7th largest trading partner, one U.S. company. So we're not containing them. We're buying their stuff. We're investing in China. We're cooperating, and we're not trying to hold China down. What the president's doing on the Strip with allies and partners is saying to China, look, there's a line. You can't cross this line. We want to cooperate. We want to build a new model of relationships with China. Xi Jinping said a new model of great power relations. The allies didn't like that because it implied they weren't great powers. So the president dropped that and said, all right, we want a new model of relations. In other words, we want to cooperate and do more with China, but look, there's a line. You cannot be pushing around our friends and allies. We want you to be successful. We want to cooperate more, but you can't throw your weight around the way you have been. That's not containment. That's setting some barriers, setting some lines so that we can keep building a cooperative relationship with China that's not going to be undermined by China pushing around our friends and allies. It's a tough balancing act, no doubt about it, but that's the world we live in. And frankly, since the Cold War, the Clinton and George W. Bush administration I worked for, and now Obama, they all have to deal with this. We're engaging, cooperating with China, but we're balancing and saying, look, there are lines. Your power is growing, but you cannot change the rules. And it's not containment, but it is a tough balancing act.
But what about the Chinese? How do they see it? I mean, they tend to see it more as if the United States is trying to restrain their growing influence.
Right.
Will they be convinced with this very eloquent distinction that you've made?
I think that the foreign ministry scholars, elites, and maybe many Chinese watching this will know, because they know how much trade there is between the U.S. and China. They send their kids to universities like Georgetown. But in the halls of the Great Hall of the People, in the blogosphere, in the Central Military Commission, there are clearly voices saying the Americans are trying to contain us. Some of it's self-serving. They're arguing we need to increase the PLA spending even more, or they're using it to try to attack Xi Jinping's economic reforms. Some of it's self-serving, but it is a narrative in China that we have to be mindful of. I don't think it should deter us from standing by our commitments, but it does require very deft diplomacy. The president will go to China later this year. I think the administration's had a problem because although we're at the same time cooperating with China and engaging China, building trust, we're also standing by our allies and insisting that the rules be followed. The administration, instead of saying both, has kind of gone from one to the other. So 2009, the president and China had a summit and said, we'll respect each other's core interests. And it sounded like China was our main priority. Then 2010, we announced the pivot to Asia, and it sounded like we were counterbalancing China. Then in 2013, we said we welcome a new model of great power relations, but great power relations between the US and China means everybody else is not a great power. So we've kind of veered back and forth between saying it's all about China and working with China to we got to stop China. The reality is you got to engage China and you have to hedge and balance and make sure they follow the rules. The administration has gotten in trouble because they go from one theme to the next. He's got to find a consistent message that we are standing by the rules, standing by our allies, and want to build cooperation with China. This trip, he's starting to get that message. His trip to China at the end of the year will be where he really has to deliver it effectively.
And do you think that this kind of message will deter China from more territorial moves in the East and South China Seas?
Yes and no. If done skillfully, I'm a big Theodore Roosevelt fan who 100 years ago, he famously said, speak softly but carry a big stick. If we're finishing trade promotion, if we're quietly supporting our allies, but then We're working with China. We'll get it done. If we're too loud about the China threat, it'll become a self-fulfilling prophecy.